Welcome to Rambling of a Madman. Today I wish to ramble on about the two ends of humanity. When I say the two ends of humanity, the maximum that we have reached and the minimum in different topics such as society, technology, medicine, financial wise. Humanity is all humanity in the world is not at the equal level. It's a spectrum from different place to different place. It differs. At the moment, we can say one part of humanity is making plans, making in the necessary steps to go to Mars, while the other side of humanity, the other end of humanity is hunting from bows and arrows in the vast jungles. This is true at all times of human history, as well as in all cultures, in all societies. Is this the human society was always a spectrum. There were two ends to it. Even if you take the people who have money, wealth, in the present itself, we know that there are two ends, and the difference between these two ends are immense. And the focus today is that gap between humans in the same society. How is it created? Why is it created? Is it a naturally occurring thing? If you look at the history, this matter is there in different levels. Not very complicated as the modern society, but it's there. The simplest form, if you take most societies, cultures, civilizations in the past, is that there was a caste system, a set of people who had the power and who ruled the that society, that area, or that country, or that kingdom. Another set of people who had the right to control the religion, teachings, thereby knowledge. Another set of people who carried out trade, farming, and necessities, such as cultivators, craftsmen, and so on. Another set of people who were powerless and poor, who were considered to be the lowest class in society. None of them wanted to be born that way, but they are. And the two ends of society was properly shown. People with power and people without power. Knowledge itself was power at that given time. Take Egypt for a moment. A person dies and nobody knows. When a king dies, there's a pyramid to indicate that for the future generations. Even access of knowledge was limited for a group. Normally, the priests were or of some set of society only had the chance to learn how to read and write and thereby have the knowledge, the information that is needed to use that knowledge to propel them to a higher level, while the other end of the society suffered with the knowledge that they passed on to them by their relatives or their families. This system is seen throughout history, in every civilization, in every society, in all parts of the world. Though this seems not a planned scenario at the beginning, it seems that human nature always tends to turn that way. Any civilization that is created has these properties, and the question remains, will this be always the system that is naturally blossom in any society where humans live? The history had a clear demarcation. The history always had a clear showing of the 2 points. We can look at history and know where the power is. There's money, there's technology, and where there isn't, always suffering comes along. But these 2 points, the 2 ends of human society was clearly marked, and people were born into it mostly. But things started changing in the modern era, where the knowledge started spreading out little by little. More people got access to education, knowledge, thereby we can say power was distributed. Then education brought in better jobs. We can say financial benefits were distributed. Then we introduced democracy, and in that kind of a system we can say even the power was given to the society itself and it was distributed. And all these are there to blur the 2 differences and propel humans to an equal level. In theory, of course, because if you look at the world today, the 2 ends of humanity can be seen in different areas of society in different ways, and thinking to close that gap is a very hard and seems an impossible task. The willingness of the human society is there, but is it the nature of the human society that is preventing it from closing the 2 ends together? Let's look at technology for a moment. In the past, technology, the upper parts of the knowledge, was for a selected few who can read and write, and who kept that knowledge within them. And next were the skilled workers who passed their skills from generations to generations. Today, with the internet, knowledge has spread through the world with immense consequences. But still, if you look at humanity, one part of society is trying to find a way to get clean water, while the other part of society is trying to conquer Mars. This is the gap that there is, because if we have knowledge to go into space and conquer it, why we can't develop a method to filter water and give pure water for everyone? This scenario can be seen properly if you take India for a moment. India has a space program that is very impactful for the society, and it's a great leap forward for India itself, and they can be proud of it. But that is the technological upper level. If you go to the lowest level of India, then the question arises. Some might even think, how could India have a space program? But it is there. And I'm not trying to insult India. I'm trying to show that inside a single country, the society in technology wise is so different. And how could there be a huge difference if everybody in the society have a method of reaching that knowledge? This is same not only for India, for any other country as well. Part of the country is capable of doing brain surgery, while the other part of the country cannot even find methods to cultivate properly. This scenario can be traced back to remnants of history, maybe. It is a very complicated topic, inequality. Not only this is in every field. If you not only technology, if you take in money, finance, one part of the society is rich, and this has been always in history, and the other part has been poor. But in a society that is looking to spread wealth across, let's say not equally, but at least across all planes of life, how can such a vast difference be? United States comes to mind. The richest people in the world with billions of dollars in net wealth live, while there are people who live in tents under bridges. How could that be? But this is the two ends of the society. When coming into power, it is the same thing. While a set of people carry the power, whether money, finance, or having access to political. If you are thinking that these societies of democracy and capitalism have this gap, I'm afraid to say that these two ends, the highest and the lowest, the powerful and the none, are seen in any society, any social way that we decide, a kingdom, a dictatorship, a democracy, communist, anything. If you are a if you're a socialist country, it's still there. If you're a communist country, it's still there. If you're a democratic country, it's still there. If you're a capitalistic country, it's still there. So it seems like this is something of a human nature. But yet, is it too early to make that decision? Because if you look at the history of humanity, for the far ends that we know of, this was the normal at that time. A set of people who claimed right to power, to money, and so on. Even if you take a global perspective, when colonization takes place, a set of countries, a set of societies try to lay claim to another set of countries and societies, which made one set of countries in the higher end of power, of economy, of technology, while the other set was in the other end, where it was poor and without any wealth or technology to gain wealth. Now, that means at this given time in the early 2000s, we are actually in a transition period where humanity is trying to understand how to distribute wealth, equality, power, technology, knowledge, medicine, so on and so on, equally to every human being, to every society, thus making their life far better, trying to close that gap. Though looking at the economy, the amount of money, the wealth that people have, and trying to figure out the two ends of society will not be the answer that would give a positive result for this. But if you move into education and knowledge, we have progressed immensely, because today most of the society have access to knowledge, and because of the technological improvements of the internet, we have been able to reach far quickly, and lot of knowledge can be taken in as a human being. Thus, if you take the history for a moment, knowledge was a privilege in history. Not everybody had access to knowledge, and not everybody have the ability to read and write, and the ability was not given from those who can to the cannot to read and write, thus keeping the intellect among themselves of the higher ends of the society. And this is broken today. It is education is a part of the society that lot of people can get access to. There is no prejudice on that, but it is one of the areas that we have stepped forward. We can't see it properly because I think Today, when, as I talked about in a previous as I talked about this in the previous uh, episode, that because we have a collective uh, technology, like a collective of different minds, different fields, different disciplines to create one technology, we cannot see it right now. What we can see to our naked eyes is that a collective set of countries, a collective set of institutions, or a collective set of uh, companies have their own R&D sections, researching, developing and earning money, and another, like the other part of the society, cannot reach that. But it is true when coming into maybe nuclear power, AI technologies, or very sensitive technologies like exploration of space and so on. But overall, the distribution of knowledge has improved immensely. Think of the Commonwealth for a moment. That the amount of technology that was there within Great Britain, and that technology was not passed towards other countries. But today things are different. That knowledge, that technology can be passed on to countries and people who are willing to accept, to take and to make use out of it. The same positive things can be told about, like can be talked about the democracy part, where the power has been given to the people, and in democracy the power of the people can be exercised, thus giving freedom and closing the gap between the two ends, with the powerful and the weak, we can say, in a political sense. Compared to the history, these are stripes of immense proportions for the human society. Well, then the positives when coming into wealth. Well, everything breakdowns, isn't it? When you see the statistics of wealth, who are the rich and who are not, and how much in a percentage wise. But I think the positive gain as a society is that anybody can work their way through up the ladder and earn wealth. Because let's face it, in the very past, right, if you take societies, when I say the early Egyptian societies, the early civilizations of from the Indian subcontinent, the early civilizations from the Latin American regions, these regions, wealth was also a privilege and not everybody had access. Even when coming into the medieval ages, wealth was a tool of power, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots was immense. The piece of silver, the ownership of a piece of silver had a big gap between a person who has and have not. So, but today the difference is Those days, the people who were in lower classes, who didn't have access to money, didn't have a method to climb the ladder up and get wealth. But today, the difference is that there is a method to go up, and a person who tries hard can get knowledge about it and start working their way up the ladder. Basically, everybody has access to wealth. Though it seems not, I think we have to look at the past and decide. We shouldn't look at the recent past 500 years ago or something. We have to look before that, around more than 1000 years ago. Then we see a clear difference. But if you look at the dreams of the society in making a perfect society and closing that gap between the haves and have-nots, in the technological realm, in the scientific knowledge, education, healthcare, wealth, in every sector, we can say that we haven't reached our goals. And sometimes looking at the recent past and looking at the recent future, it seems that achieving these goals are kind of impossible. But if you take the world history in maybe 500-year gaps, in 500-year sectors, it is safe to say we have progressed a lot, though it doesn't seem in these few years. And if you take the statistics, you will see that there's a clear difference between the two endpoints, especially when talking about wealth. I think we are still in a beginning of a transition period, and progress will be made not in the recent future, but maybe in another 1000 years. And for that, I think we are moving in the right way. It is very hard to visualize because part of the society, different countries are in different locations in the growth tree of society. Countries such as United Kingdom, France, Italy, and especially these European countries that were engaged in colonialism, has a better lead in technology, wealth, societal development, education, knowledge, and so on. While other countries who were under colonization have a hard time reaching that position because of obvious reasons. So it's even there you can see two ends of society. The two ends of society may be a natural thing, but we have done a great deal to close that gap. At least give a chance for parts of the society that are in the lower levels of the two endpoints to climb into a higher level. Some might argue otherwise, and that is the right way to approach. We shouldn't stop here. We must keep pushing more and more towards closing that gap, the two ends of the society. when coming into education and knowledge, when coming into wealth and finance, when coming into technology, when coming into medicine, when coming into science, when coming into reaching out of space, everything. And I think this can be done with a positive attitude, but it will take time. Time which spans generations and generations. So, as the human race looks at the gaps there are in the society, in the world, in present, we can criticize them, we can see the flaws in them, we can see the negatives in the two endpoints of society and try to close the gaps. But we have to think of the past, and as a society, as humanity, can be happy about the progress that we have made as a global human society. As a society, as the human global society, let's keep pushing towards closing that two endpoints, the upper and the lower, in our society when coming into wealth, education, medicine, or everything. But for a moment, let's look back and let's be happy of the progress that we have made. In this rambling of a madman, I just wanted to ramble on about this particular topic, the two ends of the society, and the history. Compared to this history, we have had some progress. The problems there are at the moment can be discussed in the future episodes. For now, I just want to say we can be happy with the progress we have made. Thank you very much for listening. Have a nice day. Aibowan.